Hey guys, it's KoJacK with another Persona 5 animation review, and we are hopping right in. So this episode is episode 6, and the synopsis of this one is Our Next Target, or that's the title of this episode. And the synopsis is, Ren and his partners encounter Yusuke Kitagawa, a young disciple of a well-known painter, Ichiryusai Madarame, and I'm butchering that first name. But Yusuke begs Anne to model for his painting, Bewildering the Three Teens. The weekend, they accept Yusuke's invitation to visit Madarame's exhibition, and Madarame appears to be a man of integrity, but Ren senses that something is off. So this episode covered a lot. I mean, it covered the introduction of Yusuke, introduction of Madarame, the introduction of Madarame's palace and his shadow. So it covered a lot in a really 20-minute episode, but in the game, that entire part in the game took so long. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, they even got to the part where they overheard Shadow Madarame saying those two words together, boy. But for the most part, it was a good, solid development episode. There wasn't any fight in this episode. It was just pure development, character development. I loved how they introduced Yusuke, and they had some really good comedic time in with how he was asking Anne to be his model, because the way they were going for it looked like he was asking Anne to be his girlfriend. But it was really well how they did that. So I had a good chuckle seeing that part, and their facial reaction when they were like, huh? So it was pretty funny. And then, of course, they're starting to show each characteristics of the all of the Phantom Thieves, and particularly Ren being the sharpest of them. But also a highlight of this week is Morgana noticing that Makoto is really sharp when she told him that they can't be on the roof anymore because of the incident, that happened earlier in episode 2, I think, where Anne's friend tried to jump off the roof. So it's kind of interesting that they're kind of peppering Makoto, because in the future she's gonna eventually be a Phantom Thieves. But how that happens, I won't spoil that part. But it's actually spoiled in the not how she becomes a Phantom Thief, but the fact that she becomes a Phantom Thief is spoiled in the actual intro of the the anime itself. So you see all the Phantom Thieves, and there might be a few hidden ones they haven't showed yet. But for the most part, that was kind of nice pacing in terms of how they started off with Yusuke introduction, and then them talking about the art exhibit that they want to go to because of the free tickets. And then from there, at the art museum, Ren starts to notice Madarame and certain words that he's using, and then picks from that, and he checks the message board of the Phantom Thieves website to kind of put things together. And that's when they decided, okay, let's use Anne modeling for Yusuke as an infiltration to kind of see if this is true or not. It's also nice that Anne, of course, has a artistic side. I mean, that's her personality. But she picks up on a few things at the art museum with Yusuke that comes into play later on after they actually confront Yusuke about Madarame. What's interesting though is that Yusuke, of course, he defends Madarame because he feels obligated to him, because Madarame took him in as a kid and pretty much raised him. So he feels a more stronger obligation to him because of that, even though Madarame is confirmed, abusing and pretty much plagiarizing from Yusuke, because Yusuke is very talented. And they didn't show the part where well, I think that'll probably be the next episode where Anne actually puts on a lot of clothes to bait Yusuke into thinking that she's gonna do a nude modeling. But it's kind of funny that the comedic timing for him saying that, oh, it's not perfect because I can't paint a nude model if you're wearing all clothes, which is pretty funny that Ryuji actually called him out for being a perv. Like, come on, dude. So it's interesting that Yusuke still has such a fascination with doing nude painting. And of course, Anne is not going to do that, of course. But it's still pretty interesting to see that they are still keeping it pretty mature and pretty funny at the same time. So stuff that you don't normally hear in anime about nude, etc., etc. I mean, sometimes they, of course, do that, but it's pretty cool that they're keeping to the source material in that aspect, and they're not trying to tone it down and make it more PG or G-rated. So that's good. But then again, animes and Japanese animes are usually pretty mature in terms of how to discuss stuff. So shortly after that, Mishima contacts Ren and let him know that he's a good friend with a guy named Natsuhiko Nakanorm. Oh gosh, I cannot pronounce that name. Okay, so I'm gonna call him Nat for short, but his full name is Natsuhiko Nakanora. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so Nat for short actually lodged a complaint against Madarame on the Phantom Thief website, and Mishima, of course, who's running that site, informs Ren and that this person wants to meet. So Ren and the groups meet up with this guy. Of course, Ren keeps his face out of view so he can speak to the guy like from around the corner, and he pretty much confirms their suspicion with Madarame even after they've already went to the Shadow Palace. And from there, they then decide to confront Yusuke, who explains to them why he supports Madarame and that technically it's not plagiarism, because he's willingly given him that work, you know, his ideas, etc. So he doesn't consider plagiarism. Plus, he owes Madarame for taking him in as a kid after what happened to Yusuke's mom. Because of that betrayal, or he felt like he was violated because they confronted him a second time, because they confronted him earlier in the episode, but Madarame played it off saying that, oh, you know, that I wouldn't believe every rumor you hear, but please forgive me. Like, he played it off really smooth and you know, like a car salesman, like, hey, you know, I'm not what the rumor says, I'm nice. And of course he bowed to the young students, which of course impressed him that an older celebrity artist would actually take the time to bow and so show such courteous respect to young teens. So that originally fooled them, but then they of course went to the Shadow Place and saw that he was actually faking that. So you know, this is a really good investigative episode. It definitely sped things up, you know, from first Yusuke to then Madarame to then putting the words together and checking the Phantom website to then Nat, you know, contacting Mishima, who Mishima then contacts Ren, and Nat and Ren spoke. You know, Ren didn't show him his face because he doesn't want to know that he's a Phantom Thief, etc. And then from there, they finally decided that their next target will be Madarame. Of course, they feel bad for Yusuke that, you know, he's being abused, but at the end of the day, you know, they really need to change Madarame's heart, because what he's been doing has already led to one death with the suicide of his student, and Nat was also a former student who left, but he wasn't as talented as Yusuke, and he's not as indebted as Yusuke is to Madarame, and he feels like because of how indebted Yusuke is, that he's eventually going to stay with Madarame until he either dies or commits suicide. And the only way to prevent that is by changing Madarame's heart, so that way he can actually, you know, confess to his crimes, that he's a fake and that he, you know, abuses and plagiarizes from his actual students, and, you know, take responsibility for being a bad person. So I really like this episode. I like these type of episodes more than episodes that leans heavily in fighting, because at the end of the day, unless they ramp up the fighting budget and make the fights like it was in that Daybreaker movie, the fighting is gonna suck. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, because at the end of the day, fighting in the game is tolerable, because again, it's a game, you know, and it's really RPG turn-based game combat, so people are used to that by now. So it's a certain level of expectation that that's the game you're playing, just like any Final Fantasy. I mean, you play that as turn-based combat. I mean, but the moves are awesome once you execute them, but it's just turn-based. So hopefully I'm hoping the next fight sequence that comes up, whether in the next episode or the one after, it definitely kind of starts to throttle it up a little bit. But the development and story episodes have been really good, no complaints. Great acting, great vocalization, so good on that part. But let me know what you guys think of this episode, you know, what you liked, what you didn't like, you know, and I will see you guys in the next week's review. Bye.